Prince of Darkness Ozzy Osbourne was once just a kid trying to survive bullies and bad grades. He's had at least 9 lives so far, maybe because he's a genetic mutant. Seriously. Ozzy may be over the top in nearly every possible way, but he's also brutally honest about his troubled past. In a 2003 interview with the Daily Mirror, he explained, "Everything when you are a kid affects you in later life. If you build a wall with rocky foundations, you are going to have a pretty unstable wall when it's finished." Ozzy's childhood was rocky, to say the least. When he was just an 11-year-old Birmingham kid, a pair of bullies used to lie in wait for him on his way home from school, then take turns sexually abusing and humiliating him, sometimes in front of his sister.
You just crawl into your fear hole, and you're an easy prey for the bully.
This was the tail end of the 1950s, when people didn't talk about things like sexual assault. Not only that, Ozzy's parents were constantly fighting about money. He recalled, "I was afraid to tell my father or mother, and it completely f***ed me up. Dirty little secrets fester, and that is one of the first things I said to my kids." The abuse wasn't the only difficult aspect of Ozzy's childhood. He suffered from undiagnosed dyslexia, which meant he was constantly being punished by his teachers. In Ordinary People, Our Story, he relates, "Tired of being called names and getting beat up, I was around 12 when I eventually started to skip school on a regular basis. But life outside school was no better, and by the time he was 14, Ozzy was turning to booze, weed, and whatever prescription drugs he could find to get through the day. He admitted, "My head was filled with these insanely dark, depressing, muddled thoughts I couldn't explain." One night when he was 14 years old, Ozzy tried to hang himself, but his dad arrived just in time to save him. But his father's reaction was anything but comforting. Ozzy recalled, "I don't know about you," he said upon sending me inside. "Sometimes I think you're mad." By the summer of 1978, Black Sabbath and its lead singer was running on alcohol, cocaine, and frustration after 2 albums. 1976's Technical Ecstasy and 1978's Never Say Die were less than well received. It didn't help that they were touring with Van Halen, who were young, energetic, and totally outperforming every night. Ozzy was having an especially hard time. His self-worth was completely wrapped up with the success of Sabbath, and the criticism rocked him so that he could hardly work. Instead, he doubled down on drugs and alcohol and kept making excuses to the band. His bandmates tried to get him back on track, but in 1979, they fired him. Despite having long since rejoined the band, Ozzy hasn't forgotten that feeling of betrayal, and he's quick to point out his bandmates' hypocrisy. They were as heavy into drugs and booze as he was at the time. Ozzy married Thelma Riley in 1971, but he'd be the first to say that he was bad at being a husband. In his autobiography, I Am Ozzy, he writes, "For years, I acted like a married bachelor, sneaking around, banging chicks, getting so wasted down the pub that I'd fall asleep in the car on the street outside. I put that woman through hell. She wasn't a bad person, and she wasn't a bad wife, but I was a nightmare." Black Sabbath was on the road a lot, which is hard even when you're not married to a self-titled Prince of Darkness, who is trying to live up to his nickname. One night in California, Ozzy talked on the phone to Riley, then hung up and proceeded to sleep with 3 consecutive women before the night was over. Around that time, Ozzy and the band discovered cocaine, which they liked so much they decided to call a cut on their next album Snowblind and made a special thanks on the album sleeve. It read,
"We'd like to thank the great Coca-Cola Company of Los Angeles," meaning cocaine.
Things were more than extreme at the time. The way Ozzy describes it, "By now, I was putting so much of the stuff up my nose that I had to smoke a bag of dope every day to keep my heart from exploding." Not exactly a recipe for marital bliss. Looking back, Ozzy regrets the way he treated Riley, but hindsight is 20/20. Surprising many, Ozzy bounced back fast after he was kicked out of Black Sabbath. By 1982, he'd released 2 successful solo albums, thanks in large part to his new musical partner, guitar virtuoso Randy Rhoads. Rhoads' flashy playing brought out Ozzy's creativity, and the two became fast friends.
I knew instinctively that he was something extra special. He was like a gift from God.
Speaking with Ultimate Classic Rock, Ozzy recalled, "Randy gave me a purpose. He gave me hope." But on March 19, 1982, in Leesburg, Florida, the 25-year-old Rhoads, who was afraid of flying, agreed for some reason to go on a joyride in a small Beechcraft Bonanza. The band's bus driver, Andrew Aycock, commandeered a friend's plane without permission and flew with an expired pilot's license. The plane buzzed the tour bus where the rest of the band were sleeping, but on the 3rd pass, the plane clipped the bus and spun out of control. All 3 passengers died in a fiery crash. Ozzy clambered out of the bus to see the flaming wreck. He remembered Rhoads in an interview with Guitar Player, saying, "We loved each other very dearly. I swear to God, the tragedy of my life is the day he died." In 1984, a 19-year-old Ozzy fan named John Daniel McCollum killed himself. His parents promptly sued Osbourne, claiming that his song Suicide Solution was a motivating factor in their son's death. The parents described McCollum as a well-adjusted kid who showed no signs of depression, but then went from perfectly happy to dead in the space of just 6 hours. Unfortunately, he spent some of those hours listening to Ozzy's 1980 solo debut, Blizzard of Oz, which includes Suicide Solution. When McCollum's body was discovered, he was still wearing his headphones. His grief-stricken father said, "No one could explain it. The only thing we know is he was listening to this music." Ozzy gave a solemn interview in which he expressed his sadness for McCollum and his parents, but pointed out that although, as a parent himself, he understood the grief, blaming the artist was the wrong thing to do.
I had thoughts about this. If the boot was on the other foot, I couldn't blame the artist.
He went on to explain that, despite the song's title, Suicide Solution isn't about suicide, explaining, "The song's about the dangers of alcoholism. Alcohol will kill you just like any other drug will. It's just a terrible case of misinterpretation as far as I'm concerned." The case was ultimately dismissed on the grounds that McCollum's death wasn't a foreseeable result of listening to the song. And thank goodness, because the ramifications of a legal victory would have put artists of all kinds at risk going forward. But this wasn't the last time Suicide Solution would haunt Osbourne. Later that year, another family unsuccessfully sued him, claiming that the song's subliminal messages had caused their son to take his life. In an interview with the Evening Standard, Ozzy talked about his longtime fear of blacking out and waking up to discover that he'd done something terrifying. It happened in 1989. Ozzy came to in a small cell, the walls smeared with human feces, with no idea how he'd gotten there. That's when the nightmare became real. An officer told him he'd tried to murder his wife. He'd gone to Sharon while he was under the influence of multiple substances and told her she had to die, then tried to strangle her. Fortunately, they weren't alone. Sharon pressed a panic button, Ozzy was stopped, the cops were called, and Sharon survived. But in an episode of The Talk, she admitted, "He's a gift from God, but if I'd have had a gun, I would have used it." Ozzy's capacity for drugs and alcohol is legendary. The singer admits to having abused cocaine, heroin, marijuana, Quaaludes, glue, cough syrup, Rohypnol, Klonopin, Vicodin, LSD, sleeping pills, and a whole bunch of other substances, often at the same time, and all washed down with massive amounts of alcohol. So, how is he still alive? At a 2010 TED-Med conference, Sharon quipped, "I've always said that at the end of the world there will be Roaches, Ozzy, and Keith Richards. He's going to outlive us all." It turns out there's a reason. According to genomics company Gnome Inc., the full Ozzy genome includes a few sequences scientists haven't seen before, and these affect the way he metabolizes certain recreational drugs.
Osbourne is a genetic mutant predisposed to drug and alcohol addiction, allowing him to consume them in massive quantities.
So the answer to Ozzy's survival is luck and good breeding? Ironically, the one substance that affects him particularly strongly is caffeine. Of course, not even genetic mutants can keep up with Ozzy levels of intake forever. The singer has reportedly been in recovery since 2006. On December 8, 2003, Ozzy, who was on a heavy dose of prescription drugs, was riding a quad bike at his home when the bike flipped and landed on him. Ozzy broke his collarbone, damaged a vertebra in his neck, and fractured 8 ribs, some of which pinched major blood vessels. His bodyguard, Sam Rustin, rushed to help him after the accident and managed to revive him twice before help arrived. After undergoing emergency surgery, Ozzy spent 8 days in a coma and was left with metal rods holding some of his bones together. He told the Sunday Mirror, "The doctors tell me every day it could have been a lot worse. I could be dead." Ozzy admits to having had issues with marital fidelity, and Sharon knows it. According to People, she knows about 6 women he's cheated with, from teenage fans to masseuses and even their own household staff. But that doesn't mean she's happy about the situation.
I only found out because he sent me an email that was meant for one of his women, and he sent it to me by mistake.
Sharon admitted to Dan Rather that she drugged Ozzy by slipping an extra couple of sleeping pills into his drink one night so that he would tell her the truth.
He was ashamed, he was afraid, everything, and so the truth would never have come out.
This wasn't their last discussion about the subject either. 6 months after Ozzy swore that affair was over, Sharon discovered not so much. And there were other women as well. She confronted Ozzy again, and this time he admitted he had a problem. Along with drugs and alcohol, he was a sex addict.
Aside from recording and performing, what do you like doing best?
Sex.
Although the two appear to have reconciled, in a 2018 episode of The Talk, Sharon admitted that sex remained a bone of contention for the couple, saying, "He's like a rabbit, and I'm like, birthdays, Christmas at this point in my life. Special occasions. It's Thanksgiving, why not? But I mean special occasions." Viewers of the Osbournes may remember the family's fondness for pets, particularly small dogs, particularly Pomeranians.
Somebody said to me once, a house without a dog is like a garden without flowers, which is so true.
In August 2024, Ozzy was genuinely heartbroken when he took to Instagram, writing, "2 days ago, I lost my good friend Rocky, who has been at my side for 15 years. I'll see you on the other side, my friend. I love you always." Sharon also paid tribute to Rocky, sharing a compilation video of the fluff ball on Instagram and writing, "We lost an OG and Ozzy's partner in crime. Rest easy, Rocky." Now 76 and frail looking, Ozzy has survived so many misadventures that it's easy to think of him and Keith Richards roaming the earth long after the rest of us are gone. At least that used to be the case. In a January 2020 appearance on Good Morning America, the Prince of Darkness told the world that he has Parkin 2, a form of Parkinson's disease. Sharon explained, "It's not a death sentence by any stretch of the imagination, but it does affect certain nerves in your body. It's like you have a good day, and then a really bad day."
It's still about the voice, and he's still a funny Nothing can take that away. Nothing.
The announcement followed a year-long stretch of concert cancellations and rumors that Ozzy was basically on his deathbed. While this wasn't true, he admitted that 2019 was pretty much the worst year of his life. Earlier that year, Ozzy lost his balance while on his way to the bathroom and fell face first. He told the Daily Mail, "I saw this big white flash when I hit the floor and I thought, you've finally done it now. I knew it was bad. I thought I was paralyzed." Ozzy could still walk, but the impact dislodged pins that were placed in his neck after his 2003 ATV accident, which required several surgeries on his spine that left him in a state of chronic pain. He explained, "After the surgery, the nurses asked me on a scale of 1 to 10 how much pain I was in, and I said, 55. 6 months of waking up in the morning and being unable to move is a miserable existence."
It's the end of the road, baby. I'm coming home.
Ozzy's fall and its aftermath have had some lingering effects on his health. As much as he wanted to continue touring, it's no longer possible. On February 1st, 2023, he announced the cancellation of his upcoming tour dates, as well as his retirement from touring in general in a post on X, writing, "This is probably one of the hardest things I've ever had to share with my loyal fans." Ozzy has always lived to perform, so he's taken enforced retirement hard, admitting, "It's been like saying farewell to the best relationship of my life."
People say, would you change anything? If I changed anything, it would affect where I am now.
Still, the ailing Prince of Darkness is fighting to hang on to his identity as a live performing artist, even if he can't travel the way he used to. He left his fans a ray of hope on X, posting, "My team is currently coming up with ideas for where I will be able to perform without having to travel from city to city and country to country." In the meantime, things with Ozzy's health have gotten worse. In February 2025, Sharon announced a one-night-only Black Sabbath reunion in Ozzy's hometown of Birmingham. Sharon told the BBC, "Ozzy didn't have a chance to say goodbye to his friends, to his fans, and he feels there's been no full stop. This is his full stop." It won't be exactly like the Sabbath shows back in the day, with Ozzy running around the stage at breakneck speed though. Sharon explained to The Sun, "Parkinson's is a progressive disease. It's not something you can stabilize. It affects different parts of the body, and it's affected his legs." Ozzy shared that, even though he can't walk anymore, he's trying to count his blessings. While speaking with Billy Morrison during the Ozzy Speaks segment on his Sirius XM channel, Ozzy's Boneyard, Ozzy opened up about his deteriorating condition, saying, "I go on about the way I can't walk and I can't do this, but you know what I was thinking over the holidays? For all of my complaining, I'm still alive." In September 2024, Ozzy revealed that his struggle with sobriety had had a bit of a setback. On his podcast, The Madhouse Chronicles: Drugs and Sobriety, Ozzy explained that a doctor had treated him with ketamine, the same drug that brought about the tragic death of Friends star Matthew Perry. Ozzy shared, I went to a doctor recently because somebody I know started to have this ketamine. He put a tiny bit in me, but that was enough to spark me. That feeling, that thing came back. It waited in my brain. His admission generated concern that ketamine, even under a doctor's care, could lead to a relapse, and the doctors agreed. Longevity expert Dr. Gabe Mirkin told In Touch Weekly, after all his medical woes, especially the neck and back surgeries, Ozzy has severe pain and discomfort. Marijuana and ketamine may temporarily help relieve some of his pain, but it's a slippery slope, especially for him. He's putting himself at terrible risk. Ozzy and his family have been Los Angeles fixtures for many years, but recently, he and Sharon have been thinking a lot about going home to the UK. While moving to America had been the dream of the working-class kid from Birmingham, 2020's America is becoming too dark even for the Prince of Darkness. In a 2022 interview with The Observer, everything's ridiculous there. I'm fed up with people getting killed every day. God knows how many people have been shot in school shootings. It's crazy. In other words, the Ozman has awakened from his so-called American dream, and as he thinks about his final years, he's crystal clear about one thing. I don't want to die in America. I don't want to be buried in forest lawn. I'm English. I want to be back. It's just time for me to come home. But that move has been delayed by Ozzy's health issues. Speaking to the New York Post in 2024, a frustrated Sharon confessed, "It just seems that every time we're set to go, something happens with Ozzy's health."
We'll get there. We want to go back so bad, but we'll get there. Won't we, Ozzy?
It's not easy being Ozzy, and it's not being one of his family members either. Sharon has struggled with low self-esteem and weight issues, including bulimia. What's more, she was diagnosed with colon cancer in 2002. She fought the disease aggressively and very publicly, and ultimately beat it, but Ozzy spoke about that time to Classic Rock, admitting, "I thought she was going to die. I never knew anybody that had survived cancer. As far as I was concerned, patient plus cancer equals death, but my wife is a very strong woman." Some of the younger Osbournes have followed in Ozzy's footsteps, at least when it comes to risky substance use. Speaking with People, Kelly Osbourne admitted first using drugs when she was 13, saying, "I had my tonsils taken out, and they gave me liquid Vicodin. I found when I take this, people like me. I'm having fun, I'm not getting picked on." It became a confidence thing. Her intake was so excessive that her mother once committed her to a mental institution for 3 days in an effort to scare her sober. And Kelly's brother Jack Osbourne is also an addict. He was treated for painkiller addiction when he was only 17, but over 20 years ago, Jack had a realization. He told MTV, "I don't want my life to be controlled by a drug. I want to be in control of my life. I was really loaded and I just sat on my mom's bed and I just said, I am going to go pack my bags. I'm ready to go. I want to go. I need to go." Thanks to the runaway success of the Osbournes, it's easy to forget Ozzy has children who didn't often appear on the show. 4 of them, in fact. His eldest son, Louis Osbourne, is from Ozzy's first marriage to Thelma Riley, and is also in the music industry, working as a DJ and in production. But Louis and his wife aren't Beverly Hills Osbournes. They were forced to declare bankruptcy in 2013 when a property crash hit them hard. Amy Osbourne, Ozzy and Sharon's oldest daughter, is more elusive than her siblings.
I like to listen to Madonna, things like that.
All right. Madonna!
In an interview with The Independent, she admitted that she never wanted the family to do the reality show, but after a number of screaming matches, she was outvoted 4-1. She was just 19 when the show began taping, but Amy moved out of the house to avoid the cameras, which broke her mother's heart. She's an introvert and spent the next few years as the rarely seen reclusive Osbourne, battling depression and trying her hand at acting and music. These days, Amy gets on well with her parents, but her relationship with Kelly and Jack is reportedly still rather strained. But none of this means Amy Osbourne is any kind of shrinking violet. In 2003, Amy appeared in MTV's adaptation of Wuthering Heights, and by 2010, Amy had formed a rock band of her own, Arrow. Her music is described as synth pop in the vein of Kate Bush and Portishead, but unlike her dad, Amy doesn't release a lot of music, nor does she do a lot of live performing. But in a 2020 interview with Rolling Stone about her ideas for a live show, she showed definite signs of a genetic link to the Prince of Darkness, saying, "I want the live show to feel like you're on the Haunted Mansion ride at Disneyland, with a little Studio 54, a touch of vaudeville, and a lot of Blade Runner. It will be ghostly and poetic, with some neon and hypnotic laser lights to captivate all the senses." That show never happened though, and in 2022, she was nearly killed in a fire that broke out in the LA recording studio where she was working. According to the Associated Press, more than 70 firefighters battled the blaze for nearly an hour before finally putting it out. While Amy and her producer made it out alive, there was one fatality. Sharon expressed her relief and sympathy in an Instagram post, writing, "They are the lucky two that made it out alive. It is utterly heartbreaking that someone lost their life today in this fire, and we are sending our prayers to this person and their family." Plenty of celebrities have been the subject of online death hoaxes, and Ozzy is no exception. During a December 2023 episode of the Osbournes podcast, Ozzy said he'd come across a YouTube tribute video and was shocked to learn that he'd passed away, saying, "I put it on and I died. The thing on YouTube which goes, 'Celebrities who have died today,' and there's a picture of me." In typical Dark Prince fashion, he laughed it off with a classic Monty Python bit.
"You've got no arms left." "Yes, I have. Look! It's just a flesh wound."
A slightly more irritated reaction came from Ozzy's son Jack, who weighed in on tabloid media reports that his dad was at death's door, often accompanied by paparazzi photos of the frail-looking septuagenarian out in public saying, "He's fine. These people are liars. Stop writing fake news." Ozzy ended the discussion of his premature death announcement on a defiant note, reminding the world of who he has always been by saying, "I am not going anywhere, and I'm going to go do some more gigs before I'm finished anyway." Meanwhile, the fake videos continue to appear. One of them even listed Osbourne's date of death as November 18, 2024, and because some people will believe anything. As of February 2025, that particular death hoax video has been viewed more than 175,000 times. Ozzy himself is likely one of those viewers, having a good laugh at anyone who's still fool enough to ever count him out.
Why does he keep doing this?
What else is he supposed to do?
If you or someone you know is struggling or in crisis, help is available. Call or text 988 or chat 988lifeline.org.